starts now.
Thanks for sticking with us here at 7:30. An investigation is underway tonight after CMPD says an officer shot a man during what they called a dangerous encounter at a busy gas station early this morning. It's another instance of gun violence that's become all too normal for us to report on, and it all has a real impact on our community.
Violence has an impact on the community's health, not just in terms of individuals being directly impacted by violence itself, whether it be injury or death, but entire communities are impacted by violence that happens because it tends to be concentrated in communities that experience that violence on a regular basis. That has a whole host of direct and indirect impacts on the health and well-being of a community.
Last night, Charlotte City Council held its regularly scheduled meeting and got an update on the plan to prevent violent crime. It's called The Way Forward. The 5-year plan, which started a couple years ago, is meant to address, reduce, and prevent violence using a public health approach. So what does a public health approach look like?
The city, county partners, and community work together to reduce violence, increase economic opportunity, and build healthier, more resilient communities.
All right, so take a look at this. This is being done through a 3-tier system to stop violence before, during, and after an incident. I want to break it down for you here tonight. So Tier 1, try and stop violence from ever occurring in the first place through things like youth development and mentoring programs, plus family support services. You get to Tier 2, after violence has already happened, violence interrupters, people embedded in the community can swoop in and work to cool down situations and keep it from getting worse. Also, there are hospital-based programs working with victims on how to move forward after being injured. And then third, the long-term response. Restorative justice programs working with those affected by crime to try and repair the harm done and find a positive way forward. Then there are re-entry programs, and we're going to focus on that one for you tonight.
As I begin to get closer and I begin to see the finish line, then it's like, okay, how am I going to reintroduce myself to society, to the community? Because for the last 26 years, this is what they've known me as, but that's not who I am.
More than 650,000 people are released from the prison system each year. Many of them say it's difficult to find a job, to make a living. Some employers say it's tough for them to hire a person with a criminal history. Former prisoners have struggled until a new program came on the scene that's changing the game, turning inmates into entrepreneurs. WBTV's Dedrick Russell shows us how it's making a difference.
This is the sound of work and freedom. Claudia Shivers owns this coffee shop in High Point called Queen Coffee Bean. It's a dream come true.
And I love roasting the beans, and it also gives you some peace. Like, you have to sit quietly and roast the beans, or else they're not going to be, you could burn them or anything. So you sit quietly. So when I need just time to myself, quiet time to think, then I roast beans.
And peace is a must for this small business owner. Before she opened this shop, Claudia was an inmate. She was locked up in prison for federal tax fraud and needed peace in her life. In fact, this is her mugshot. While she was waiting for her sentencing, she had an epiphany while working at a coffee shop.
And I said, well, if I can make $50,000 for Starbucks, I can at least make $5 for myself. So I started doing research, and I realized that coffee roasting was the great point of entry into the coffee business.
And did you think that you would be an entrepreneur while you were in prison?
Of course. Yeah, because one of the mistakes people make is thinking that where they are is where they're going to be, and not planning for where they want to be later.
With that in mind, while her family visited her and she was locked in a jail cell, Claudia was developing her business plan. After nearly 11 months behind bars, she came out on top, focused on starting her company. She says getting there wasn't easy.
When a challenge comes, that lets me know that I must be made for something better, bigger and better. So once I overcome this, then something better is going to happen.
You could say Claudia went from a cellmate to a mover and a shaker, and this is how she did it. She hooked up with the organization called Inmates to Entrepreneurs. Brian Hamilton is the founder and a business owner. Back in 1992, he tagged along with a minister during a jail visit. While there, Hamilton asked an inmate what he was going to do after he got out. He said, "Get a job." Hamilton knew immediately that would be challenging. So as a business owner, he got to thinking.
And that was the light bulb moment for Inmates to Entrepreneurs, because I was like, as an entrepreneur, I'm like, hey man, don't try to get a job. Don't play on other people's turf. Go create your own turf, go start your own business.
And Inmates to Entrepreneurs was created.
My best business idea, but it came from solving a problem.
The company goes to prisons and gives inmates step-by-step instructions on how to start a business. Courses touch on marketing, business finance, and sales. No seed money is given, just motivation to find an idea and clients.
Forget about the business plan, forget about government grants, forget about loans from a bank. No bank's going to give you a loan to start a business. It's too risky, right? So what can we take in our control to go get customer number one?
Since the creation, Hamilton says about 40% of the inmates who have gone through the program are now entrepreneurs. He says they have what it takes to make it.
The proportion of people who have grit, who are coming out of prison, is much higher than the guys like me out of Duke.
And it's that grit that makes former inmates want to be part of today's workforce. Just ask Claudia.
I hire formerly incarcerated people. I especially love people who are very hard to get along with, because if you can get through to them, then you've done something.
Claudia doesn't forget where she's been. That's why she volunteers at halfway houses and goes into prisons to tell her story. And how does it feel going back into prison?
It feels weird, because prison, like marriage, is easy to get into. It's hard to get out of.
This entrepreneur wants to expand her business. So does the founder of Inmates to Entrepreneurs. And talk to me about the vision of Inmates to Entrepreneurs. It started in 1992. Do you have a vision to take it to the next level?
I think we're in 45 of the 50 states. We've got people all over the country who come to our courses. I think we're in about 4 or 5 different countries right now. How do we make this international? Because it is an international problem.
While the founder works on his vision, Claudia reminds inmates to never give up.
If you're resilient, the triumph is inevitable.
In High Point, Dedrick Russell, WBTV, on your side tonight.
Terrific program, terrific story. Dedrick, thank you. You can hear more stories from your community in the WBTV special, The Hands That Build, stories of resilience and triumph. It airs tomorrow, or Thursday night, I should say, February 13th, right here at 7 o'clock.